So find steady trends with minimal volatility. Okay, I'm going to show you that because I feel like that is valuable, and that's something that you see in TradFi. So go TradFi for that, right? So I mean, just take a look at Meta right there. Like, look at how beautiful that is, right? And it's all within a bit of a red um, channel, but I mean, that was green, still stayed orange, very little chop in a weekly time frame volatility cloud, right? Um, that's what that's what it looks like. Nvidia, considered a relatively volatile stock, but it was in a green. I think even then, granted the channels do change, but I think even then it was in a pretty green channel, right? So it's down here at about 167 many weeks ago. This was back in at the turn of 2023, right? So December to January 2023. There's a moment in time where it goes orange on orange over green, and it just never looks back, right? Again, this is definitely a hindsight is 2020. I'm not saying like anything about hey catching it here or whatever. What I'm trying to point out is one that the algos do really well, right? The movement monitor never went blue. We had only one moment where it was about 2 or 3 weeks of volatility, where the video, probably scared people. I think they said some things on the news about chips, not being allowed to be sent to the U.S. or whatever it was, right? There was some kind of news probably around that time, and then we had some down pressure. But overall, the volatility cloud, because it's relatively sensitive, changed, but it never had that triple stack confluence. So it never had the red or the blue on the weekly time frame for the movement monitor. And now notice how precise the pressure line was, right? They're not always that precise, but that's how precise they can often be, especially when overextended at the top of a weekly channel. Is it overextended from the volatility cloud? Yes. Is it overextended from the movement monitor on the weekly time frame? Yes. So do we have a lot of room for this price action to at least go back down to the fives, maybe even before it goes back up? Yes, we do. Is Meta overextended from the base of the movement monitor? Yes, on the weekly time frame. Does it have room for volatility to take it down here within the week, right? Which means within a 3-day time frame. Yes, it does. Is it technically still in a downward channel, even though it's breaking slightly? Yes, technically. So Meta over a multi-year period, as crazy as it kind of seems, is flat. And that's kind of like you wouldn't expect somebody to say that in this market, but I mean it's kind of like ranging, right? There's no guarantee that it's not going to come back down to 200 when somebody has something bad to say about it. And at the same time, there is a nice little break here from bearishness, and so maybe our next low doesn't have to be as low as the last one. Maybe it comes down here and then it kind of like goes back up. There's a lot of things that could happen, but I just kind of want to point out that the channel is not biased. It's not against Meta. It's just pointing out what's happened over the past, I believe, 200 weeks. It's a long time. It's a long time to build a history, right? So it's a multi-year channel, and this gives you some nice perspective. And so would you short Meta? I don't know, maybe for the short from here to here, possibly. If you find, logic to back up your play and where your stop loss would be and where your take profit would be, absolutely. Wouldn't be crazy to do that. And at the same time, would you bet against an upward sloping movement monitor that's orange like that, especially if that's what you see in many time frames? Probably not, So let's take a look at that on the midterm. Right, so if we go here, again, why is it so cool to have symbol syncing? Because I can just go look at Meta in an instant, just like this. And then I can go look for my short. Do I want to short? Are conditions conducive to my short yet? I mean, here was a nice moment to like nail the precision pressure line short. If you happen to see that, or if you were looking for it, in that moment of extreme up pressure where earnings were where they were, think a lot of people saw that it coincided with a gone line, and so they said, let's take it. It also coincided with the top end of a lot of channels, like a lot of meaningful channels, right? 200 period for the 6-day, the 200 period for the 5-day, the 200 period for the 4-day. Like, what a coincidence, right? What a great opportunity. Very close to the 200 period for a 2-day. So, and then it was obviously a bit overextended on the 1-day, which means even the 1-day has room to go back, as does the 2-day. So price action could easily revert back to 409. But it's tough to go in and enter a short without knowing what's happening with a short-term price action. So what we do is we go and we do the same thing that we would do on crypto. We would go and we would look at meta on shorter term time frames, right? And so it's only when we look at something like the 5-minute that we see a downward sloping channel. So if we're looking for short opportunities, we just have to be really, really cautious here, right? And then I like to double check. Yeah, I always like to double check as to whether or not the long-term movement confluence is on or not. We call that training wheels. If it's unchecked, then it's off. If it is checked, then the orange and blue on your movement monitor will not come into play unless you're on the proper side of longer-term moving averages. So if you want it to be more sensitive and you want it to work all the time, then you want to uncheck that box. If you want to always make sure you're trading with the larger term trend, that's fine too. It's probably good. You will probably increase your win rate. You'll have less opportunities. And to do that, you want to make sure all 4 of those boxes are checked. And so, again, is it a prime opportunity to short meta? Not really. I mean, if you did already because of a different thesis, then great. But if you're looking for that opportunity, no, we don't see the blue on blue here yet. We don't really see blue on blue here yet. This hasn't turned blue. This is still green. This is still green. The distance between this and this is minimal, right? And so you just don't have that confluence. And this is where I think patience comes into play, because there will be a moment, if it's going to happen, there will be a moment where you have red volatility cloud, red volatility cloud, red volatility cloud, red volatility cloud, and then you also have blue movement monitor, blue movement monitor, blue movement monitor, blue movement monitor, right? And then you also have blue breakout bars, blue breakout bars, blue breakout bars, blue breakout bars. And when you see those opportunities, those are the conditions where you can actually ride the pressure. If it happens right here, be cautious, because that red is there to tell you that that's an opportune moment for buy pressure to show up. And so shorting just before that could be a mistake. But if you see the lines dip, right, if this blue movement monitor dips in the 12-minute time frame below that, even though price action had already gone here, by the time that movement monitor gets there, maybe it comes back up and here's your short, right? And then that's where you go in. And so at that point in time, you'll use the checklist. Patience will help you get a better result. Okay, so hopefully me drawing with the different colors helped in that situation, because a lot of people might otherwise think that now is a great time to short meta. It's statistically not. You could get lucky and land it, but you're not really using the data for opportune execution of a trade. Okay. We talked about steady trends. So I did show you some steady trends in that traditional finance chart, right? I mean, even I happen to have my company, the Real Brokerage, up here. Like that's really nice. You don't see that all the time in crypto. Here's the SPY. Here was a great climb for quite a few days, really from November through the new year on Coinbase. I mean, just look at how smooth and steady that trend was when you take into account the orange movement monitor, the fact that we're in a green upward sloping channel. Looks like we were probably there even back then. When you take into account, again, movement monitor and volatility cloud. And when you take into account that overall, the overwhelming dominance was orange breakout bars without one cyan or blue showing up. And then the opposite is true over here, right? You were in, even though we were in a green, technically upward sloping channel, here was just an opposite set of conditions, right? dominating blue breakout bars showing the trend has overall been down. You can use Henkin Ashi trend candles to kind of clear out the noise there. That often helps. They don't really help with entry or price action, but it helps to identify a trend. And then you can also see that the blue movement monitor was pretty prevalent until the volatility cloud shifted, at which point in time, it made a bit of a move. And so there's been some range trading there. But overall, I just want to point out what a nice, cleaner looking trend actually looks like. Because if you look at enough crypto, you'll kind of see things. You'll want to think that there's a beautiful trend when there's not. Those are beautiful trends. Crypto is notorious for being difficult to find, trends. Or you have to look at a much bigger time frame. Because the news is either one day there's 8 ETFs and Bitcoin and crypto are going to go to the moon, and you should be in it. You're an idiot if you're not. And then other days it's like, what are you talking about? Crypto is about to be outlawed in every single city in the world, and you should be out of it. You're a dummy. And so you have to literally kind of just look at the trends, I think, and the technical analysis and the data, and then pay loose attention to the articles. Unless something extremely significant comes out, most of the time the charts, show what's happening before the news. And I think that's why it's nice to be a part of a good group as well. So trends with minimal volatility. Some great examples in the TradFi space, which is why we're pushing into TradFi as well. And other people have asked about Forex. So I'm not going into sharing a bunch of things about Forex, but I will say that the data and the algos do work on Forex. So all of these specific items from the checklist, with a few exceptions, like you don't need to check Bitcoin or Total 3, but most of these items will work exactly the same. Okay, next.